All right. Well, Chris, what are you drinking? I know Matt's got a rye. What are you drinking?
I got a half of Weizen from East End.
There you go. I'm trying. Matt brought out the rye. I'm trying to determine if I want to beer it or rye it.
Looks like you have quite the selection to choose from.
I know. I've got some options back there. So
this is very unlike me. I'm not used to drinking on a Monday.
Yeah,
it feels wrong.
It pretty much felt like every other day throughout the last 18 months for me.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm doing the rendezvous there.
All right. We'll have to do an exchange. That's a good one.
It is, man. I'd love to share a glass of this with you, both of you. Chris, do you drink whiskey?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually looking for some whiskey, but I didn't have any good ones, so I was like, I'll stick with a beer.
Chris has a nice, like a bourbon smoker for when he makes his.
Yeah.
He's got the whole contraption.
Yeah, a bourbon smoker.
Yeah.
My wife bought me one of those last Christmas.
Oh yeah.
I have not used it as much as I would have hoped to use it.
Same here. Same here.
It's like one of those novelty things. Like you really I may actually bring it out for a Halloween thing that we're doing.
There you go.
It's like make some spooky drinks.
Yeah.
It'll just be smoked bourbon, but spooky drinks.
I brought it out for one of our work digital happy hours, and that might have been the last time I used it. I don't know.
Yeah, they're nice. They're just it's a little bit of work.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a process. So if you're not in the mood for that process, then I'm not going to use it.
That's mixology as a whole, though, right? It's a effort of love.
Yes,
for the drink.
It really is.
So, well, awesome, guys. Are you comfortable with moving forward tonight?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's try it. You guys are frozen on me, and I suck. So, but if I'm just staring like,
you look great. Just nod your head every once in a while.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're frozen right now.
No, you're not.
Still frozen? We're unfrozen.
You're good.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Cheers.
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 A little glass tap there. All right. So what I want you guys to do, let's start off with some intros. Matt, we'll start with you. Then Chris will go to you. Tell me who you are, tell me what you do, and then tell me who you do it for. And then we'll just kind of keep the ball rolling with some questions and answers and conversations. That sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
I'm Matt DeLorenzo. I'm the business director at Safety IO, which is a software subsidiary of MSA, the safety company, headquartered out of Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Chris. You're next.
Yeah, and I'm Chris Borneo, Matt's colleague. So I'm the product group manager at MSA, and I'm specifically focused on gas detection as well as worker safety technology.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you both very much. We've chatted a little bit about what we're drinking tonight, so I'll leave that piece out. What I want to get into now is give me a little bit of backstory on you guys individually. And we'll just stick with Matt and then Chris. Like, how long have you been with MSA / Safety IO? Like, walk us through briefly that history. Like what's your background? How you came to be doing what you're doing today?
That's a good question. So I think I mentioned, so I actually just passed my 12th anniversary with MSA. In my time with MSA, I've had 5 or 6 different roles. I came into MSA as a web marketing specialist, working on the website, helping with the Facebook presence and the YouTube channel, educational training video content, things like that. But as soon as I came into MSA, I didn't know much about MSA. I knew that they were a safety equipment manufacturer, a global company, but I didn't know how it operated. I just knew my domain. And so one of the first meetings I was in was with a product line manager. And I learned about the type of role that product line management is. I'd never even heard of it before. I had only had a background in web marketing with a few other companies. And I immediately was interested in that kind of path. And so I got into product line management on the fire service side of the business, and then transitioned to the industrial gas detection side. And MSA started a wireless program, and I got involved with the connected storyline. And I guess you could say the rest is history, where the Safety IO business kind of got started. And I've been involved with Safety IO for the past 3 or 4 years now.
That's awesome. Chris?
Yeah, I kind of have a long story too, so I'll try to keep it short as well. Was still in college at Pitt, majoring in industrial engineering, and MSA just looked like a really interesting company to work for from an industrial engineering perspective. And I had known quite a bit about the company, and I had heard about the mission, and it just, when I interviewed there, it seemed really, really compelling. So started there as a co-op, did 4 rotations, but it was really nothing more than that. Then I got the opportunity to get hired full-time, more on the operations side of the business, with an industrial engineering, project engineering type role. So I did that for a couple of years before kind of making the transition over into the marketing world. Spent a couple of years in an analyst position, and then actually headed over to Berlin, where I was working for 5 years there, and moved into product management. So that was a really cool experience. And then about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I moved back from Berlin, and now I'm working in product management here. Matt and I are working really closely on the whole connected story, the connected strategy, and really trying to execute that for our customers as quickly and as effectively as we can.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, man. I just love hearing people's individual unique stories on how they got to where they are. I think it's like a fingerprint, right? Nobody's is the same. Like, it's all unique and individual. And here we are sitting here on this webcast, having some drinks, talking about your history and what you guys are doing. So thank you for entertaining that question. Let's bring it into, MS. And, there's a lot of people that know what MSA is, but I think a lot of people probably get it confused with the other MSA. So tell me what MSA is, and then walk me into this connected story that you both have mentioned, right? So tell me MSA's past, and then where you guys are now from a technology perspective.
You want to take that one, Matt, or you want me to take it?
You should start with that one.
All right. So MSA is 107 years old now, I believe. So really founded in 1914, I believe, if I did my math correctly. And it started as a safety company and protecting miners, which was some of the most significant risk that existed from an occupational perspective at that time. So that's where the founders started. And since then, the company has evolved and matured over time, but the mission has largely remained unchanged. And that's, we're a safety company, and that is all we do. We are all about safety. So we've grown. Now we have 6, 7 different core product lines, but we're serving industrial end markets. We're serving into the fire service as well. But everything goes back to that mission. And historically, we started out as very hardware-focused products, which, that makes sense. That's where a lot of companies kind of came up through. But then, over the past probably 5, 10, 15 years, as technology has crept into our everyday lives, the same thing started to happen inside the safety world, right? So you started to have access to these technologies that you never had access to before. So, things that we take for granted, from like cell phone, internet, all of these things have been really left out of the safety equation. And MSA started to realize that this is insane, because all of these technologies can help protect workers at the end of the day, or firefighters. And so that's really where the connected journey started with MSA, with Safety IO, to start to understand at a very deep level what our customer needs are, and how technology, how connectivity can really start to change the way that their safety programs are implemented. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to add on to that at all.
Yeah, I would say, it's been a progressive education, right? So I think with the safety equipment, you start with, and where MSA started with was, hey, what are the biggest, most immediate needs for protecting people well, and designing those things into the pieces of equipment. So, for example, with gas detection, for a long time it was about, hey, these things they break. They're in high risk, really tough environments. So there was innovation around durability, and then it became about, hey, what about the data on these things? What about the sensor capabilities of these things? How can we enrich that story to make sure that people are getting as early a warning as they can to get out of harm's way? And as the sensor story matured within MSA, then it became even more about the data and how do you expose that data in a constructive way for people. So I think it's been a layering of different pieces and components of technology in the places where it made sense. We've learned along the way, and I think the Safety IO story, the next generation of exciting products that are coming from MSA are going to be just another amazing safety layer on top of the previous generations that have built that before us. So the rich history comes with a lot of rich education and an opportunity to serve customers in exciting ways.
Yeah, that's awesome, man, because it's really interesting. I mean, you started out in such a niche industry, but at that time, I mean, like that's what people did, right? Mining, especially in our area, right? It was all about the mines.
Yeah, and even initially, I know that they struggled to sell them as safety products. They were selling them as productivity products because the allure and the interest of protecting people was lower culturally than showing that you can help people be more productive. Fewer accidents means more people are able to get the work done and spend time more productively. And of course, that is a cultural transition that's gone on as well. Yeah. But that's how it started.
Which blows my mind. I mean,
yeah,
that was 100 and what Chris's math, 114 years ago. Is that what you said? 107.
107.
Yeah.
107 years ago. Yeah. It's crazy how much has changed in 100 years. Wow. So walk us through then the Safety IO, this subsidiary of MSA. How did that come to be? And Chris, what are you guys working on at MSA? And Matt, what are you guys working on today from a connected technology perspective, since this is an IoT webcast?
Yeah.
What are some of the cool technologies that you guys are working on today?
Yeah. So Safety IO was born out of an understanding that our customers had a craving for insights. They wanted more than just the data. They wanted to know how they can make things better. So, it's the whole data is meaningless until it becomes information and you can do something with it at that point. And our safety managers in the industrial space are so taxed with distractions, interruptions, even if they had all the data in front of them, to actually parse through that, to learn something and apply it it just wasn't manageable. Right. So our goal with Safety IO was to introduce a couple of software platforms, the Grid for the industrial customers, Fire Grid for our fire service market, to help with some basic blocking and tackling where data was available, but insights and information were not, at least not in a really tangible way. So around compliance, around maintenance, around incidents, different things across the product categories that could be powerful. And we just start to expose those things in a unique way and an intuitive way and then you grow from there. So that's been the goal of Safety IO, is to help grow the MSA connected ecosystem. And the things that Chris is doing only layers on top of that from a product perspective.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of to tack on there, I think, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is take this connected hardware now, take Safety IO and the cloud-based software and the platform that they've developed there, and then layering on services on top of that and bringing it together in a way that's really going to simplify safety for our customers at the end of the day. We believe the simplification aspect is extremely important to help drive adoption and ultimately to help create a more robust safety program at the end of the day. And so that's really what we are focused on. And we like to think about it in 3 different verticals. So you have a connected worker, and that connected worker is working in an oil and gas refinery, for example. What hazards, what dangers are they facing on a daily basis, and how can we help? How can we help protect them? How in that dangerous environment can we make them more productive with their safety processes, as an example? So that's the first piece. The second piece is really the connected infrastructure. So one of our core product lines is fixed gas and flame detection. And these products are mounted throughout a facility and just constantly monitoring that facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So how can we weave that type of, those types of safety products and those safety solutions into the cloud and into the connected worker ecosystem as well? And then finally, from a fire service perspective, a connected firefighter. So how can we take what we've always known a firefighter to be, make a connected firefighter out of them, and again, make them be able to battle fires much more safely than they've ever been able to do in the past. And so we're constantly taking that holistic view and trying to figure out the best way, whether it's hardware, whether it's software, whether it's services, whether it's merging all of this data together and creating new insights that they've never been able to have access to before. That's what this is all about at MSA. And I think the nice thing is that MSA is a big enough company with an extensive portfolio to be able to have access to all of these different products. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we're small enough to execute on the strategy as well. And that's something that's really unique to us.
Yeah. And you can see that. I mean, it's not easy for a 107-year-old company to transition over the last 107 years to keep up with the times and the culture and make the pivots and shifts. And then to get to the point where they're like, you know what, we need to spin out another company that's even more focused on data and these, what did you call them, Matt? The insights that are gathered from that data to give actionable, things to these organizations and these groups. I mean, it's not an easy lift. What were and have been some of the challenges that MSA has experienced in doing that? Because I'm sure we'll have other companies that listen to this and watch this eventually, and maybe they can get a little tidbit of a knowledge on how to transition, or somebody's in an organization and they've got a great idea and they're kind of going through those growing pains.
So there are a few. I mean, it's challenging to grow something kind of with a micro focus with macro goals, I guess you could say, right? So there are a number of people on our team that were really focused on creating the software, ensuring that it was going to deliver value to customers. And when, first of all, customers aren't used to hearing that type of storyline from MSA, right? So as you're engaging with folks who are used to doing certain things a certain way, and they don't consider that these technologies could potentially help them, that's a challenge point. And you can overcome that with good questions and listening and normal types of smart salesmanship and discussions. Number two, when you're talking to some customers, because they aren't part of an IT organization and aren't necessarily part of like a digitally enabled company, or they don't feel like they're part of that arm of the company, when you're talking about cloud services or cloud solutions, red flags immediately go up, because how many corporations have sent around the email saying you can't use cloud technologies to save this and that or do that, or so there's that hurdle that you have to overcome culturally to say, hey, no, that let's engage with your IT department. I guarantee that you're working with cloud hosted solutions. There are probably just limitations around what style what types of things you can save to cloud hosted solutions, what those look like. So working through that, getting our ISO 27001 certification was a big lift, as you put earlier, to help remove some of those barriers. And I think culturally, it's just different, right? It's a different type of storytelling. It's a different, it's a bit of a pivot on the value proposition. So even internally, even though people are encouraging and they are eager to be involved and they're supportive of the big story, it does create challenge points where people aren't used to talking about MSA in that way, right? It's a new type of story to tell. So they're healthy hurdles. They're expected hurdles in many senses, but it doesn't make it less challenging to overcome, right? You just have to find good partners who are willing to walk along with you and say, hey, I don't get it, but I want to, and I'm willing to kind of take those steps with you along the way. And that's, anything worth doing is going to have challenges, especially if you're used to doing things a certain way for 100 years. And I find that overall, there's been a tremendous amount of support internally to do this. And we're seeing the fruits of that, only 3 years into the journey, and seeing that kind of find its way through the rest of the organization. And people like Chris and several other people that you've met at MSA before are like the chief advocates alongside us for getting that done, and seeing that vision grow so that the mission becomes even more impactful over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. I think Matt hit on this briefly, but just the internal change aspect. An analogy that I always like to use is you look at the electrification of vehicles, you look at how vehicles are starting to become powered by software. Yeah. And you look at the pain that some of these legacy manufacturers are going through to try to adapt. And I would say we've probably experienced some of that on a relatively small scale. And this goes back to us, I think, being the right sized organization to work our way through this. Sure, it hasn't been without its challenges, but we've been able to successfully make it through the last 5 years and really start to change our approach to the safety solutions that we're developing today. And I think you look at Safety IO and what we've been able to build with that platform there. It's a testament to us being able to get through those tough times, right? On one hand, a 107-year-old company might sound like it's old, but it's 107 years old for a reason. It continued to survive and thrive through a lot of different changes, a lot of turmoil in the world over and over again. And I think, this kind of what we're going through today is just a modern example of what they've always been able to do.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you think about a company like MSA and the amount of time that it's been around, and you just think about how challenging being around. I mean, Truefit, we've been around for 25 years, right? And we're working on technologies today that nobody even conceived 25 years ago, right? Like being able to, as you said, not just survive, but thrive in that change, adapt or die, being able to adapt and then still be around, and just the success factors. I think it's fascinating. I think a lot of people really don't understand some of the challenges that come along with doing that, and how commendable it is of an organization to be able to do that. Right. And I know we've talked about Avnet, on these in the past, and Avnet's another one of those companies that's a 100-plus-year-old organization, and in the electronic components game and in the IoT space, and now kind of helping companies kind of get there. Like, it's interesting to see all these old companies before technology was even a thing, like become technology companies.
It's fun to kind of think about the historical piece of it too, because if you look at when MSA started, the U.S. and the world really were in the developed world were in the second industrial revolution, right?
Yeah, like what was the most technological thing in 1960
1914,
or
right?
1914.
I mean, the
Yeah, like
cars
what?
were just hitting the road, right? In any meaningful way, right? The Model T was on the road, and it wasn't like it was prolific at that point. You know, people were
Right.
still horsing around. No pun intended.
That was a good one.
So, but yeah, we've been through and are working through our third industrial revolution at MSA, and add to that, there are within MSA retains people like you wouldn't believe. There are people who've been working for MSA for 45 and almost 50 years. That was a part of one of the emails that the CEO Nish sent out. He sends out a biweekly email every Friday, and he was celebrating 3 or 4 different people at MSA who've been there for 45 plus years. And so we have four generations of people working at MSA, and you think about the communication challenges and opportunities, right? And we're living through many of the different kind of challenges that our customers are seeing at a different scale. But I think it also is what makes us special, because there's a tremendous amount of history. There's a tremendous amount of passion. The mission has stayed the same the entire time. It's always been about keeping people safe and healthy. And it's ultimately, how do we ride the revolution waves to continue fulfilling that mission and doing it in a unique way that allows MSA to thrive and our customers to go home and be with their families and do all the great things that we have the benefit of doing in a relatively low risk environment, right?
Yeah. So what are all the industries that you guys are actually serving today?
Well, there's quite a few. I mean, I'll rattle off a couple. So within the industrial sector, we serve oil, gas, petrochemical, utilities, wastewater, agriculture. So a host of those. And then we have a general, there's always the general industrial marketing, the manufacturing, fabrication, steel, all kinds of things like that. But mining is also part of our story. It's not as much as it used to be. It's more of a global piece of the company. It's not as much in North America as it once was, which is why they changed the name to MSA, the safety company, from Mine Safety Appliances, because we've grown. Again, as we talked about, the safety story has expanded beyond just the mining space. And then within fire service, of course, it's primarily structural firefighting around cities and towns and neighborhoods. Not as much on the wildland firefighting side of things.
Wow. So that brings up a great point, and I wanted to dig into this and I forgot. So thanks for saying that again. Talk to me about some of the stuff that you guys are doing on that fire safety side, because I think 9/11 just happened. We know and understand the sacrifices that firefighters put themselves on the line every day in duty. Like, walk me through some of the things, if you can talk about some of the stuff that you guys are working on in that fire safety space, and how you see that impacting the safety of firefighters.
Sure. So I'll start, and then, Chris, fill in any gaps, because I'm sure there will be plenty. I think within fire service, MSA is one of the only head-to-toe firefighter safety companies. So we have products in the fire safety portfolio, from the Carnes fire helmet, which became part of MSA through an acquisition in, I think, around the year 2000. That company was founded in 1836 in New York City, right? So 180 something years old. I'm not doing the math. I'm not that smart. 185 years old. To the turnout gear, right? And to the breathing apparatus, all the way down to the boots and the gloves and everything, right? Thermal imaging camera. So we were on the forefront of the breathing apparatus development, thermal imaging. We have a new product called Lunar that is not only thermal imaging, but also ranging to help you find people. When you're in a dangerous environment with your team members, it allows you to find, when there's something catastrophic going on or otherwise, it allows you to find the other firefighters who are on scene with you inside that building, if something disastrous happens. So there's a lot of really amazing technology, and those were the breathing apparatus. The MSA G1 is a platform solution. So we've been adding to it since 2012 when it launched. It started as just a breathing apparatus. It grew to include a thermal imaging capability. Now the Lunar device will allow everyone, whether they have an MSA breathing apparatus or not, to clip a thermal imaging camera with ranging capabilities to their breathing apparatus and make it part of their story. So even if they're not an MSA customer and they don't know the technology solutions that we offer, it gives them an opportunity to get to know us better. And of course, they use the portable gas detection too. We have tons of save stories related to gas detection devices around carbon monoxide or combustible gases as people are going into homes or buildings to investigate challenges. So you really start to stitch together a whole variety of technology in a unique way to serve the fire service base.
So this thermal imagery, like, talk to me about that. Explain that to me. Is this, you're talking about the breathing apparatus that covers the face, and then is there?
It's
like
not it's not part of the heads-up display. That's what that would be called. So there is technology inside the face piece that is heads-up display driven, but it's an additional unit that clips on to the harness of the breathing apparatus that has a nice big screen on it. Can do several types of thermal image color variations depending on what you're looking for and what you're comfortable working with. And it provides a really unique ranging technology, and it allows for real-time GPS type of information as well, that we'll be taking advantage of and offering new services around in the coming year or so.
It's fascinating.
It's really cool stuff. I mean, and it's such the fire service, as you can imagine, tremendous, exciting customer base to be connected to, very upfront, tell us everything. Like when we go to do voice of customer with them, they're going to tell you what they think, and if they think your product is amazing or if they think your product is garbage, and they'll help you make it better. And so I think that's part of the MSA DNA, is to make sure that we're really tightly integrated with customers to understand their journey and where they're trying to get to, so that the technologies aren't just technology for technology's sake, right? Yeah. You want it to have power and meaning behind it to keep people safe. And I think we've done a really exciting, we've done justice to that mission.
Yeah.
And maybe something interesting to add too, on top of Lunar and search and rescue. I'm getting some feedback here. So the Lunar device, search and rescue device, fully integrated connectivity that just launched this year. It's a super exciting product. And then more recently, we just put out a press release that MSA partnered with a company called PhotoKite, which is based out of Europe. But what they actually have is a tethered drone. So what happens is you mount this tethered drone on top of a fire truck. Once you get to the scene, the tethered drone basically flies up so that you can get full visibility of what's going on at that fire scene. And the nice thing about the tether is you don't need a pilot to man it, and it runs power to it and everything. So it can just stay up there basically for as long as you need. So that's just another great example of how we're starting to marry different technologies together in a way that starts to stitch together this whole connected firefighter story. So it's pretty cool. It's one of the more exciting ones for us, and something that we're excited to see how it pans out.
And to add again to the Lunar story too, right? Those are now able to be connected on a local fire scene from a tablet. So you have a single pane of glass for the incident commander, and they can understand and see the context of what the people are seeing inside. And that's enabled through the Lunar device itself, as well as through the FireGrid Monitor app. It also ties into the breathing apparatus, so you have an understanding of where people are at when it comes to breathing air, right? Because the cylinders are, X number of minutes, but it's all based on how quickly you're breathing or how heavily you're breathing. So to know how taxed your firefighters are, how quickly they're breathing down their air, when is the appropriate time to evacuate them based on that. And if they get to an extreme point, how and where they are to send help. There's so many stories being stitched together through different technology layers and through different interfaces that it's just every day is exciting to go to work because there's so many talented people working on so many exciting ways to connect people to better ways of doing things, smarter ways of doing things, protecting people in new and unique ways. And it's not always just a better widget. It's what are you learning from what happened from a training perspective? What are you learning about the environment before you go in? So there are a lot of really cool things going on there.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I'm getting feedback. When you think about the ability of having the commander, you mentioned that single pane of glass, right? Like you think about it and you can picture, I mean, we've all seen movies, and now a lot of times, like the movies that we've seen, like those technologies that are in the movies are now becoming a reality, but being able to be a commander and see your people, how they're responding, their vitals, those types of things. As a firefighter, as somebody in like a high stress situation like that, you're going to be willing to and have the adrenaline running to push your body further than where you maybe should. And so having somebody that's on the outside of that situation, being able to give feedback, say, hey, you got to get out of there. I mean, I got to imagine like that's a huge, I don't say selling point, but like that gives firefighters a huge advantage of being more safe in their job, right? That accountability in doing what they do to the best of their ability while making sure that they're operating in a safe manner.
And that stretches to the industrial side too. I mean, our products are used by people doing the most high risk types of jobs in some of the most formidable environments and climates in the world. So knowing more about the environment that they're exposed to, the risks to them, even if the work that they're doing and the things that they're doing are safe, right? And they've taken all the right steps. There are other things about the environment that could impact them in a very significant way. So there are definitely things that we're looking at to understand the rest of that picture, so that we can give better feedback to industrial workers in dangerous environments, firefighters in dangerous environments, and see how do we enrich their quality of life? How do we protect them better in the midst of those dangerous activities, and give them better guidance, and the safety management teams better guidance as they look to improve those efforts. And I mean, you see it all the time. Technology often takes the most dangerous activities off of the people and puts it on other types of processes and capabilities. And we want to know how we can enrich that story.
Yeah. Chris, anything?
No, I mean, I think I agree with everything Matt said. It's maybe the one thing that I did want to add is this is why it's the experience that our customers have with our safety products is so important and critical, because you mentioned these high stress environments. Sometimes you have a split second to make a decision. Sometimes you only get one try at it. You make the decision, the correct one, or you don't. So whenever we think about designing safety products, especially as the ecosystems of these solutions becomes more complex, we're doubling down and focusing even more on the experience to make sure that we get it right. Because at the end of the day, if you have a solution that it works 50% of the time, or it works by pressing twice the number of buttons that it actually should, or pick any other unoptimized experience, that is really what we're trying to avoid here, because we believe that our solutions are only going to get adopted and truly scale if you make them easy to use. And so that's why, it can be hard sometimes, but you try to set the bar really, really high.
Yeah.
So think about some of those connected products that you're using in your everyday lives that you absolutely love. That's kind of what we're setting our sights on trying to achieve, because we believe that if it makes a customer happy at home, the same type of thing is going to make a customer happy at work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you made an interesting point, and I don't think I hadn't thought of this until you just made that comment. Like when we talk about product design and development, the UI and the UX, user interface, user experience is insanely important. It's got to be that much more important when you're looking at seconds or fractions of seconds to be able to make a decision and do what you need to do to gather that insight, to make that determination on whatever that action is, whether it's in fire or whether it's in some sort of an industrial or manufacturing facility or otherwise. Talk me through, if you can, like the product development process at MSA. Like, how do you guys go about building products that have that level of, impact and importance? What's that like?
I think I can shed some light on it, and I think Matt can too, from the safety IO and grid perspective. So, on the hardware side, thinking about that ecosystem, we started really early on. We basically locked ourselves in a room for a couple of weeks, and we had talked to a lot of customers and understood this is specific to gas detection. Like, what are their needs? What are their pain points? And we tried to focus on what do we think we can best solve moving forward? And so really what we did is we worked through a lot of different design sprints around each of these pain points and started to develop these experiences that we thought might make sense to the customer. I want to say we had maybe about 20 of them. Some of them were physical prototypes, but most were just storyboards at that point. And we took those storyboards back out to customers and said, hey, we talked to you a few months ago. We went back into a room. We tried to figure out what could help solve your needs. And here's what this experience would look like. And sure enough, right? I mean, probably half of them, I would say we missed the mark. But that was a great low effort, low investment way to learn that before we started to truly build something and spend a lot of engineering time doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's been pretty much, just iterative throughout the entire process. And that's something that we're continuing to mature at MSA with our UX UI design function as well. And then, Matt, you can talk more about the grid side.
Yeah, and I would honestly, I would say it's really similar. It just happens faster because, software interfaces, the tools, the capabilities, whether it's a web or a mobile interface, you have shorter spin cycles than coming out with a really unique pieces of hardware that takes 18, 24 months because of all the components and the certifications that you need, because those devices operate in a safety space and really dangerous environments that need specific certs. On the software side, we can spin up A and B testing of different types of wireframes and the experience that we're trying to drive. And then you start to add a little bit more fidelity to those experiences, and you get them in front of customers and people who've worked in those environments to see what's going to have the fastest, deepest impact. And we've also started to use some tools embedded within the grid and the fire grid experience to help us understand, hey, what are the things that people really gravitate toward? What are they using a lot? How do we focus our efforts on making those as strong as they can be? For the things they aren't using, are they just not important? Or do we need to go to the drawing board on how that was designed and the message behind it to ensure they're getting the value out of it? So there's UI, UX is an integral part. It's a foundational part of what we do from a software iteration standpoint. In fact, we're creating a new team of developers focused in a specific area. And the first hire in that group is UI, UX. It's not a developer. It's not a product owner. It's that first person who can help walk beside someone like Chris to understand the customer journey that we want to create. And then once we have a really strong understanding what that journey should be and what that map should be for that first service, that's when you hire the developers. That's when you get the product owner involved to prioritize all that effort and execute. and then you just build from there.
I think as well, it kind of goes back to, as you were answering, I was thinking about what we talked about earlier in change.
Yeah.
We needed to shift mindsets, because whenever you're talking about isolated hardware products historically, there's only so much UX you can truly actually instill into that piece of hardware. And so there just wasn't as much opportunity. And so recognizing the kind of the make or break mindset, I guess, that UX could have with these complex ecosystems was really probably the first piece that we had to tackle, to make sure that whether it's me, whether it's a UX designer, whether it's a product owner, whether it's a developer, that we were all on the same page, that we understood the criticality of an awesome experience for our customer.
Okay, somebody froze, and I think it was me.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man, and it makes sense that that you guys would develop, take the time on those pieces of the puzzle when you're developing the products. All right, so we talked about your past, we talked about MSA past, we talked about where you guys are presently. Talk to me about the future. Where you guys, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I just want to uncover, a layer or two. Talk to me about the future. What is the future of Safety IO? What is the future of MSA? Where are you guys looking to take the company in the next 5 to 10 years or the next 100 years?
I'll go ahead first. I mean, in my mind, I'd love for every worker to be a connected worker, every site to be a connected site, every firefighter to be a connected firefighter, because I believe just like every person walking around has a smartphone in their pocket, it's that same type of paradigm shift happening now within the industrial world, within the fire service world. So to think about all of these things that are connected, some of them are borderline absurd. Why would safety products, why would a safety program not be connected in the same way when it's so critical and so important to protecting the lives of your workforce? So that's kind of like when I think about what we'd love to achieve with all of this, it's creating enough value across every safety program out there, every firehouse, so that everyone realizes, hey, we want to do this because it is the right thing to do for the people that we're protecting. Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, so I guess, of course, I agree with that. I think with, Safety IO kind of being a startup inside of a bigger corporate environment, and with the success we've had in the first few years of that experiment or journey or whatever you want to call it, we've been given an opportunity to do some really special things in the safety industry based on that learning and based on how we understand that can have a broader impact in the entire portfolio that MSA has to offer, which means now those benefits can be extended to any customer of any type within our target audience. And so to enrich the experience, to finally have the opportunity to take data that was available to them, and to transition that and churn through it and generate meaningful insights from that is really powerful. And I can't think of a better way to continue fulfilling the mission of a 104-year-old company that's dedicated to safety and wellness of people than to be able to go, okay, we have understood the landscape of creating, excellent hardware, things that perform in critically dangerous circumstances time and time again. how do we extend the reach of that performance to now the insights that improve the safety program, that help elevate, many companies, many of our customers say that safety is priority number one. They have claims about there being goal 0 for safety, where, there's no injuries, no incidents, no deaths, no safety concerns whatsoever. You can't get there without robust safety programs, and those have to be undergirded with some type of data and some type of powerful context to actually make that happen. And I think MSA is in a unique position to help make that happen across a variety of industries, whether it's the industrial space, the fire service space, some of the new markets that we've gotten into with recent acquisitions, who are more OEM focused or HVAC focused. There's value across all of those when we start connecting those storylines and enriching the broader safety message.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're coming up on the end of our time together, which I have enjoyed this. I enjoy both you guys immensely. So thank you so much for participating. I've got one final question, and I ask this on every webcast, and it's, what can our listeners do for you? What is something, if somebody hears this and they get to this point and they've trudged through the last 6 episodes and they're on episode 7, coming on minute 45 or wherever we're at right now, what is something that they can do? What are types of introductions that you guys are looking for? What are the things that you're looking for to kind of help push those needles forward for Safety IO and MSA?
So we're always interested in understanding what type of capabilities are out there. If you're in the audience, you've heard the story of what we're trying to accomplish. And if you have a technology layer, if you have a process layer, if you have a cultural component that helps us work through these transition periods, these change management periods, I think we're open to listening. Our interest is in driving safety and propelling safety forward. And I think we're relatively agnostic when it comes to what are the things that help that happen, whether it's, again, technology, process, the change management piece, HR piece. So I would just say that we're an eager audience because we're looking to help MSA get to the next 104 years, right? We believe and love what we do. We're excited about where we're going. And so I guess that's an open invitation to connect.
Awesome. Chris.
And use up all of Chris's spare time. I'll directly to him.
He doesn't mind it.
No.
No, I think I'd add on, all of this, obviously there's a ton of investment happening within MSA to make this happen. These solutions, these safety products that we talked about, they don't just appear out of thin air. We need people to make it happen. And so I think if it's a story that resonates with you, in my opinion, there's never been a more exciting time to join MSA. So definitely check out what is out there and see how you might be able to fit in and join the mission with us. Yeah, it's super exciting, and I'm telling my wife this all the time. For example, you have a mission like safety, and now you have this technology layer. So you are truly this safety tech company today, and it's just a very, very different shift than what we've been used to historically in the past. And so, if you want to work in tech and you want to work for a really great mission, or on a really great mission, I think MSA could be an awesome spot to land. So that's what I'll add.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would echo that for sure.
Before we wrap up, do you guys have anything to add? Anything you want to, this is your time to shine.
I feel like I've already talked too much, to be honest, Alex. I mean,
I just want to know why you switched from whiskey to beer.
Well, you know what? I don't know, man. I was just feeling the beer. I needed something cool. I was gonna say let's take a beer break, and then it was just conversation was too good. So you saw me switch the cameras while I was doing it too. I'm sure.
No, I mean, I really just want to express my gratitude. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and to talk about this stuff. We love what we do. We can tell that you love what you do, right? Whether it's with Truefit or on the IoT side of things. The passion is there, and it's fun to talk with people who are passionate about what they do. And this has just been it's been good to connect with you in this way. Chris and I get to talk about this stuff all the time. But it's nice to be connected to people, whether it's in the Pittsburgh area or otherwise, who share the enthusiasm for what the world can be, right? And I think Sean Amorati, who's one of our advisors, always talks about how entrepreneurs are about, like, they see what's happening in the world and they see how it ought to be, and they find ways to make that a reality. And even though we're an established company and you're in an established company, it's exciting to scratch that entrepreneurial itch and think about what can be better. How do you make it more compelling, and how do you make it more exciting and meaningful to your customers? So anyway, I just want to say thank you. This is fun, and hopefully we can do it again.
Definitely, we will do it again. We will do it in person over whiskeys. Happy to do that. And I appreciate you both again immensely. Chris, thank you. Matt, thank you. We'll get this posted in a couple of weeks, and I'm excited about it.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Hopefully
Alex.
that didn't glitch too much on you too. So
you forgot to unplug the grandfather clock, but that's
I
fine.
know it was the only extra one. I don't even know where it is. So
no, all good, man. All good.